Do you ship
Wow.
Destiel? What do you think of Destiel?
I could see it happening.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. We have a special guest today who you may recognize. Has been on my channel 3 times now. I think technically you've only filmed twice, but there's a third video of bloopers.
Yes.
So my father is back to talk about some very, very important topics today. This is sort of
As
a
always.
follow-up on a video I did last June. A lot has happened since then, both in the world, obviously, but also specifically in the supernatural fandom. As you can see, I have my new Destiel shirt on that I got for Christmas. And he also has a shirt that, as you can probably tell by the amazing quality I made. We made a video about fan fiction back in June of testing out different terms, seeing what he knew.
My complete ignorance about
He didn't know that much, but he has learned a lot since then. A lot in general, but also in fanfic terms. So first, your shirt. Do you know what a heller is?
No, I have no idea.
So a heller is it's actually a new thing. It didn't even really exist at the time of that
Right.
video in its form, but it comes from, in the supernatural fandom, people who are against Destiel would call Destiel people Destihellers as like an insult.
Oh.
And back in like October, a couple of artists, I'll try to link to the art if I find it, made it into like these like funny, artworks of like a motorcycle jacket with Destihellers on it with Sam
Okay.
wearing it, and people started to use it like kind of reappropriate it, and then
Yeah.
it became shortened to Hellers. So now Hellers is Destiel shippers, but used by
Number one.
shippers. Yeah, it's like a funny thing. So I made it for him. So you're a full-blown Heller now. So I just wanted to talk about Destiel because in our
Okay.
last video, we talked about it for a pretty big chunk of the video. We talked about Supernatural, and a lot has happened in the fandom since then. So I thought it would be fun to
Oh, yeah, the last season, which I'm sure pushed things along.
yeah, bring you back. Well, that's the thing is I started watching it again. I took the show back up last May after I graduated college to catch up before it came back on TV in October. And boy, am I glad that I did because a lot of stuff happened in the fandom. So basically, since then, obviously the biggest news is that Destiel went canon. Like it actually, for real, happened on TV. Live for millions of people. I don't know how many people actually watched it, but a lot of people watched it live, including me and him. And my mom was there? Yeah.
Our
My
whole
mom
family,
watched
even Johnny
it too.
watched it.
No, I don't think Johnny watched that episode
Okay.
with us. He watched the next one,
Okay,
the next
go ahead.
week. But yeah, so basically I watched that episode with my parents live, and I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I wasn't sure that was what was going to happen, but I had an idea of where it was going. He didn't have any idea of where it was going, and it was crazy. The night of November 5th, 2020, possibly, and I say this, it sounds like a joke, but I'm not kidding, probably one of the craziest nights of my life. It was so weird. It was do you agree that it was like really, from my perspective,
Yeah.
that it was very, very weird of a day? Because the thing that happened was, that was the election. It was literally the presidential election.
That's true.
Yeah, it was that Tuesday. And then because of the way that it was with all the mail-in votes, that was when all the results were being tallied and stuff. So literally like all day long was election stuff. All the news coverage was election and Joe Biden and everything and counting the votes and everything. And everyone was just constantly, checking the news of who's winning and everything. And then, you take a break. I took my break at 8 o'clock at night to watch Supernatural, get away from politics for a second, and fucking Destiel goes canon in the middle of the night. Everyone logs onto social media, of course, to talk about this, and it literally trended above the election on Twitter for like a day,
Yeah, I remember
for a
talking about
whole
that.
day. It was crazy. And the emotions that I think it unlocked in a lot of us that have been waiting for this for many years was like really crazy. So I think we can both solidly say we have a new OTP, right? Because when we talked about this last time, you didn't have an OTP, and my OTP was different. What were your feelings watching that the first time?
I thought it was appropriate. I wish they would have done better afterwards.
Yes. Yeah.
They didn't build on that after. It was a great way for their relationship to come to an end on the show, together on screen, and they kind of dropped the ball after that.
Yes. I think we're going to try to focus on the positive stuff.
No,
in this
I'm just
video.
saying.
But no, I totally agree with you. I think most people watching this will probably agree with you that the actual episode itself was really good, and what they did with it there was good, but then they kind of, they really dropped the ball.
No, I'm even negative from just the Destiel stuff, or just from
the show in general.
Just from a
storytelling,
screenwriting, story writing point of view. They
set
built
up
that up very well. The same thing with Sam and Eileen, when she disappeared, and they never went back to it, and that would have been a much more satisfying ending.
Yeah, they set up a lot of threads that they just kind of dropped at the last minute, and then a lot of it they blamed on COVID, and it's not COVID's fault.
But one thing one thing that's interesting, and I mean, I didn't think about it that night because I didn't know, but when we watched the this little mini marathon we did, it's obvious that several times over the course of the series, Castiel kept threatening to die for him or with him, and then at the end he does.
Yes,
so that was all that foreshadowing going on.
Exactly. I showed him the end of season 11, not the whole episode, but just the scene where Dean is going to be the soul bomb, and Cass is,
I could go with you.
And that's a recurring thing in the show that he does a couple of times. That's the thing that when we were watching it the first time, that was the moment that I had a feeling that it was actually going somewhere because of that, because of all those other times when Cass says, "Oh, I'll do it. I'll go with you. I'll go with Dean."
No, when they went into the room and he cuts his hand, I knew he was going to do something like that.
Yes. I mean, that was like the definite part. But when he said,
"I'll go with you, Dean,"
I don't know if you remember, but I literally gasped. I was like, oh, and you're like, what? What does that mean? I was like, you don't understand.
But also the way
he hadn't seen those episodes.
Dean doesn't even answer the phone at the end when Sam's calling him.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty crazy, profound, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, profound bond. They have a profound bond.
Right.
Dean and I do share a more profound bond. I wasn't going to mention it.
I think you've seen that one.
It struck him so deeply that...
Yeah, that he literally ignores Sam.
Yeah, and Sam's probably thinking he's dead. So he's willing to. He's not even able to pick that, to find out what happened to all his other friends and everybody. That was pretty cool.
So you brought up a good point with Dean at the end, which actually brings me to a question.
But one more thing is you could tell from that scene is that it's obvious. I mean, not Dean as much, but Castiel. Definitely, Dean was the most special person.
Yes, 100%.
You can love a lot of people, but there's one person that you love a lot more.
Well, because that's the whole thing is he says...
I cared about Sam, I cared about Jack. But I cared about the whole world because of you.
It's not like he doesn't care about Jack and he doesn't care about Sam or any of these other people that he's met along the years, but... It all comes back to Dean in the end. It's always been, and it's always been like that since the beginning. He fell for Dean. He did all that stuff for Dean. What do you think about my reaction to it? Because literally after the episode was done, I was screaming. I didn't cry. I didn't cry today either. But I legit walked around our house yelling at the top of my lungs.
I would say slightly obsessed with that would be a good way to describe it. But also you were just shocked.
Yeah.
by what you just saw.
Were you shocked? Were you surprised that they actually did it? They went through.
No, I didn't have any expectations, so I really wasn't shocked. I mean, it was like, wow, I can't believe they did that, but not like, whoa, it was crazy. I just I didn't think it would take it there.
Yeah, you didn't have 7 years of build up.
Yeah, I didn't have a build up. If you told me, are they going to end it this way? I would have said no. But when it happened, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Do you remember what you did the next day when I was in the family room and you came in and you said, oh, I have something for you?
Yeah.
You remember what you did?
I played a song.
What song did you play?
I played Paul McCartney.
You have to say what song.
I can't remember the song.
You played Silly Love Song by Paul McCartney, but just the part where he says, I love you over and over. And I swear I was going to punch you over.
That's right, I did play that over and over.
You're like, hey, Slavon, I have a song for you.
It's interesting, even from watching some of the little marathon we did, was how many people, secondary characters, or even characters who are only there for one episode, kind of in a roundabout way reference that.
Yes.
If it only happens one time, you're like, whatever, but knowing the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
The continuum of all those characters, you're like, wow, other people realize this.
Yeah, it's not
in the
just
universe.
the audience. It's literally in the show. I mean, the first one is probably Uriel, who in season 4.
I can't say if it's first.
He's the angel.
I know who he is, but.
See, he has this weakness. He likes you.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first big one.
Well, he also says, I'm going to take away what you want.
Yesterday we watched Lily Slender Has Some Regrets, which is he had never seen, and it's such a good. It made me cry. I cried watching that episode yesterday.
Which one was that again?
That's the one with the woman from the 1900s.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he was referring to was Isham when Isham says,
I'm gonna cure you of your human weakness. Same way I cured my own. By cutting it out.
and he literally goes to kill Dean, like, and it's after he'd been talking about being in love with this woman and like.
I have my biggest thing taken away. Now I'm gonna take yours away.
Yeah, and it's literally Dean. It's crazy, and people that don't watch the show don't always realize these things are like actual things that happen in the show, but no, it's real. Balthazar calls him his boyfriend at one point, I think, or no, he says.
Sorry, you have me confused with the other angel. You know, the one in the dirty trench coat who's in love with you.
I think Meg calls him his boyfriend.
Crowley a couple times, kind of in his Crowley sort of way.
Oh, Crowley, yeah, that's a whole thing in season 6 with Crowley and Cass. Yeah, they have a whole storyline. It's very heavily implied to be like that. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm glad that you picked up on that without me saying anything, because it is there. Like, I think people think that sometimes like shippers, quote unquote, are making it up, but it's definitely all not subtext. Like, some of it is subtext, obviously, because that's how stories work. Not everything is laid out, but some of it is literally things that characters said to one another that is like completely textual.
Yeah, no, if you watched 1 or 2 seasons or just a couple episodes, you wouldn't pick up on it. But after a whole bunch of seasons, and you see how it ends, you're like, wow, that was going on back then.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you is something some of my friends wanted to know what you thought about, which is, I think I know what your opinion is because we've talked about it before a little bit, but do you think that Dean reciprocates the feelings to Cass? Do you think he's also in love with Cass?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it keeps in with his character that he's the kind of guy who keeps everything in, bottled up. And whether it's with stuff with his brother, about his past, that's just his character.
Yeah. So
that's why I think it was pretty poignant when he didn't call back, because he realized at that moment what he lost.
Yeah, that's so true.
Or he didn't pick up the phone, I should say.
Again, what I was talking about with people that hadn't seen the full episode, not understanding that because they didn't see that scene. But like you said, if you know Dean's character and you know how much trouble he has with emotions in big moments like that, it makes sense that he would kind of be frozen in the moment and then afterwards break down, which is what happened.
Looking for the closest bottle of Jack Daniels he could find.
And he does. The next episode, he starts out the episode completely drunk. When they go back to, after finding the dog, they go back to the bunker and he's like wasted. Do you think there are other points in the series that you've seen that were moments that you kind of were like, would more pinpoint for Dean's feelings?
I thought the one where he was trying to get him to come out of purgatory.
Hold on! Dean! Go!
Oh,
he's like, you can tell he's desperately wants to save him.
Yes.
And it looks like, like a lover would,
not want
his
very
wife
intense.
or his husband or whatever, to lose them,
That episode, that whole storyline, a lot of people compare it to Orpheus and Eurydice, of Orpheus trying to go through Hades to get to...
And you just look at his face when he lets go. They also do a lot of stuff, not specifically about this, but the camera work a lot of times. The way it focuses on the two of them.
Yes, you're so right. There's
the cinematography, direction, whatever you want to call it.
There's a lot of scenes...
It's like, whoa, that was a weird close-up.
Of just
that didn't seem so appropriate for what they're talking about, contextually. And then this overarching, Destiel thing.
There's a lot of scenes.
Sense.
There's a lot of scenes where it's like Sam, Dean, and Cass.
It's like,
and Dean and Cass, they'll be like close up on their face, or they'll be standing like that, and then Sam's just like over there.
Yeah, it's like you can read the screenplay, it says close up on the lovers.
Like literally, it's like that's from season 4. That's from very, very early on that they.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of time. Or even like Castiel's looking at Dean in the background.
Yes.
A lot of times.
I showed him Heaven and Hell when he kisses Anna, when Dean kisses Anna. And Cass like just stares at them.
You did the best you could. I forgive you.
And at the time, I think people were like, what? Now we know why he was looking like that. So you agree. You think he reciprocates.
In his own way. I mean,
yes.
It's not...
I mean, they're different species.
I just think it would be, if he came out like Castiel did, I think it wouldn't be in this character. I think that would have not been as good.
Yeah, that for him to have this big emotional speech. I think, too, he is more a bit of a...
He's definitely repressed.
he's more of a man of action. I think his actions speak louder than words type of person. So honestly, with disregarding the finale, I think if you look at his character, it would have been more likely for him to kiss Cass or don't do something like that rather than like out loud say his feelings. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. What's interesting is he kind of dies as a human.
Yes, you're so right. Yeah, he really does acclimate to humanity over the course of this series, which is, I think a lot of people wanted, including myself, wanted him to become human at the end, for him to give up his grace or whatever, fall from heaven permanently to be human. I think that would have been a really good natural ending point for his show, and it kind of is what happened, but like just not the full way.
Yeah,
but really,
yeah.
he
still had the power and stuff, but
he is like part of humanity now, rather than he's much more human than Angel.
I agree.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you is another thing that my friends wanted me to ask.
Okay.
There's an episode in season 9 called Heaven Can't Wait that I've watched with you before. It's when Cass is human and working in the gas station.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And he's got to go on a date.
Yes. So at the end of that episode,
But the girl wants him to babysit instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember
So
that.
at the end of that episode, Dean picks him up. He says, "Oh, where to?" And then it cuts to the next day and he's taking him into work. So people call that the fanfic gap.
Right.
Because nobody knows what happened in between that nighttime, probably like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and the next morning.
The walk of shame.
But like, that's what my friends wanted to ask. What do you think happened in that interim period of that night before he drops him off at work? Because it could be anything. They could have just drove around all night. They could have gone back to a motel. They could have talked. They could have kissed. They could have done whatever. What do you think happened?
I don't think they had sex. If
Okay.
that's what your question is. I just don't. I think it was.
That's
built,
valid.
I don't think if they did that, the way Cass dies at the end makes sense. That's of somebody who, he even says something I could never have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they might have spent the whole night together and talked and, very uncomfortable sort of night like that. But
I
don't think that they went to that next level.
Yeah, I don't think that here's the thing. I have like 8 different versions of all the canon spaces between my head of like different things that happen. So in one version I'm like, oh no, they probably did something. Like there's no way they didn't. And part of me is like, no, they probably barely even talked. But I think probably what happened is, like you said, something in between. They probably had like a night where they just like talked all night.
Yeah.
We're just kind of bonded, but they didn't
maybe
kiss
sat
or
in
have
the
sex or
car and
anything.
just talked.
Yeah, but I think it was probably an emotional thing that
absolutely.
they shared no matter what.
No, again, only because the way Cass dies in the little speech he does doesn't happen, then I would be more like, they probably, get it on, The way that Cass leaves the scene in that one episode, it seems to me like a person was never able to go beyond that.
Okay, that makes sense. I think on the other side of that, some people do think that they could have still had something physical, but that Cass didn't think Dean could share that emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could only do that because Dean does have a lot of like hookups and stuff earlier in the show. He doesn't really in later seasons, but that's a whole other thing. But earlier in the show, he does hook up with a lot of women and stuff. So I think it wouldn't be unbelievable for Cass to think, oh, he is capable of hooking up with me, but not being in love with me.
Yeah, just my
I think
opinion.
It's possible, but that's the thing with headcanons that you're talking about. That's a headcanon space that it's a gap, so you don't know. Like nobody actually knows what happened, and I think it was written that way on purpose to keep that
like
space for the audience to fill in.
If I was watching the show along and you asked me right after that episode came alive the next day, I would put they got it on for sure. But looking at it, the overall story and the way Cass and Dean ended, it speaks to me of two people who never had that together.
Okay, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Oh, okay, the next thing I want to talk about, this is a huge deal for people that watched our previous video. So a couple months ago, almost a year ago, but a little less than a year ago, we made a video all about fanfic. And what have you done in that?
I read a fanfic.
He read a fanfic. He read not any fanfic. He read a Destiel AU fanfic. I got him to read a fanfic. It was amazing. He enjoyed it. He wrote a whole thing for me, a whole review. Back in June, you were like, oh, maybe I'll read one day. And I slowly kept putting the idea in your brain. I'm like, you could read this, you could read this, you could read this. And he finally did. And
I have my lull between my book series.
And did you read it on your Kindle or on a
my
iPad?
iPad, yeah.
You read it on an iPad.
I downloaded the PDF on my iPad.
Very dad thing to do. But yeah, he read And This Your Living Kiss, which is a poet.
It's a good story.
Yeah, Dean is a poet and Cassiel's a professor, and it's so so good. It sounds very cheesy. I think it sounds pretty different than, because it sounds kind of cliche from the description, but it's not like what you would think. I don't know. It's really good. I really don't like a lot of AUs, especially of Destiel. Like some other fandoms, I've read some AUs that I like, but I don't tend to like AUs as much, just because I like this canon characters so much, and like they don't like especially cast doesn't translate as well to AUs.
No, it was excellent.
But I think in this case they characterize them really well.
His POV sections were really good.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good.
The only thing I have not enough Crowley.
He really likes Crowley.
I love Crowley. He's great.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's another fic that I have.
If
that
you could have
has
had
more...
like some flashback of debates and Crowley being in, maybe it's hard to write his little snarky British ways.
Yeah, in this fic, Crowley is another professor at a different.
He's very critical.
He's like a colleague of Cass's.
Critical of Cass's tastes in poetry.
Yeah, it's,
modern poetry and stuff.
It's really good. I'm trying to think of another fic that has more Crowley in it that you could read, but I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I can picture the Professor Crowley more into like Byron and those guys, Shelley and those classic poets.
See, now you have headcanons for a fanfic. Look what I've done to him. I've converted him.
I think he has that anyway as a devil.
a demon. He always calls them devils. He's like the little devils. I'm like, they're called demons. The devil is a character in the show. You started out with an AU, a very romantic one. It was from the Pride Fest. It's good. Yeah, I thought he would like it because of the poetry, because he likes poetry.
I like poetry.
But I think that was just big news that you actually read a fanfic.
Not as trending on Twitter as the president or the Destiel stuff, but you know.
Yeah, but still big news. Big news for fans of this channel. So I just kind of wanted to wrap this up with just some of your overall thoughts. What are your favorite moments of Destiel moments, favorite episodes, things like that?
The best Destiel moment is that final scene. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
That's a great television scene for a B show. That was very powerful.
Yeah.
For like a let's face it, it's not going to win any Emmy awards.
No.
That was a great scene. Period.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I think again that's not to get into the negatives, but that's the fact that they didn't capitalize on that great ending on that episode with that great scene, powerful scene, just kind of blew the show in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very stupid.
The other one that I thought was pretty cool, but we just watched it yesterday, or Friday night, I remember when they're in the car and Dean's mad at him and he won't talk to him.
Oh my God!
That
is Lily Sunder.
I've been in that situation
funny.
with my wife and previously with girlfriends before I met my wife,
yes.
and that is such a lover thing.
Yeah, it's like a lover's
sit in the car and not talk to each other. And like poor Sam sitting there's like tell him I'm not talking to him anymore.
Yeah, that's a classic scene.
Friends don't do that. Lovers do that.
Yeah. What does he say that Cass says?
You know what I like about him is that he's sarcastic, but he's thoughtful and appreciative too.
What is that supposed to mean? Okay. The road. Don't watch the road.
Yeah, that's
it's
definitely
so good. It's very they have a lot of and you saw in season 15 too when they're having their big, less fun, but their big fight with after Jack dies, that when they go to hell and see Rowena gives them couples therapy. She's like,
what am I picking up from you two? A wee tiff. Tell your Auntie Rowena.
That was really
they
good.
literally
I
had
remember
couples
that.
therapy.
Rowena's another one of my favorites.
Yeah, Rowena's great. I mean, you like Crowley. So
That family works really well. What I always liked about the show, and I would think it would be a great series of novels, if somebody wants to write them, I liked the whole premise that God is gone and the angels don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're just as bad as humans and everything is messed up because of that hierarchy without God there to supervise it. I just thought that's very fascinating. If they did it, it was a very tight structure without all the one week we're just going to go hunt some, what they do. Sometimes it's like
without the monster of the week stuff.
Yeah. If they just had a trilogy where that's the world, that'd be really cool.
That's why I think I don't.
You should write it as a
fic. You could write it.
No, I'm not writing it.
That's why I don't get a lot of people that
I'd rather read it.
Though there's a lot of people that are like, oh, God's so bad after season 4, after season 5, or even after season 3. A lot of people hate the angels. The angels ruin the show.
Oh, that Metatron stuff was really cool.
Yeah, I think they're one of my favorite parts of the show is the angels. Even later seasons is all the stuff with like I said, Metatron and Zachariah and all those guys, and even Raphael and as much as I don't really like season 6 and 7, I think Raphael was an interesting character. All the archangels are interesting.
No, so I liked that premise. It was done to be movie, B show, campy type of structure with these two brothers over 6. But just as in general, that's a cool premise for a trilogy or a 5 or 6 book series of what would the Earth be with God gone and nobody knows where he is, and now these angels are having the same power struggle that humans have. Disney should definitely pick up the musical.
Oh, the musical.
Supernatural the
episodes.
musical.
That is such a funny episode. What do you think would happen if Cass was there in that episode if he found out about people shipping Destiel in the fandom?
The cast were probably like, well, I don't know what season was that. Would
That
he
was
been
season
like
10.
Would he have required explanations what that even means?
No, he would have gotten it at that point. I think.
Okay.
That was after he had been Metatron's pop culture download too. So I think he would.
He would have changed the subject.
I think he would have been like mortified. Like I think Dean's angry. I think he would have been like, I gotta leave right now, like bright red in the face.
Yes, I'm saying
like,
he would have changed the subject or what.
yeah, because like Dean's like deflecting. He's like, we're not gonna talk about that. But Cass would have been like, okay, I'm never gonna talk to you again. Like I'm gonna go die in a hole now. Yeah, I think he would have been embarrassed. I don't know. I go back and forth because there's like more fun Destiel episodes. Like Free to Be You and Me is always one of my favorite classic ones. But like of more kind of larger emotional arcs, I really like Goodbye Stranger. That's
And both of them, when Dean beats him up, what we noticed also
in The
was
Prisoner. Yeah.
they don't fight back.
Yes.
Both of them just
Both
allow.
times, neither of them
they won't-
lays a hand on the other. Like,
Yeah, they won't allow.
oh, yeah, that breaks my heart. It's really good.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
that is good. Was the show too long?
It's complicated because I would say
Because I didn't watch it from beginning to end. I probably only watched like half.
I
of
would
the
have
episodes.
said I would say no if it had ended better.
Yeah,
if
that's
it had
true.
a
No, you're
really
right,
good
right.
ending, if the finale was like perfect or even just good, not perfect, but like a decent finale, I would have been like, no, it was worth it for getting all the characters that we got
Yeah,
by the
you're right.
end and those interesting stories and stuff. But the fact that it ended on such a terrible downer, like I was like, maybe we should have quit while we were ahead. Huh?
What I didn't like about the ending, and then we'll stop there if
Yeah.
you want. They took no chances at all.
Yes,
That's the thing.
100% true.
They had
They
this
just
show
did what
for
they always
16
thought.
years
15.
and 15 years, whatever it was, many years, and like that, the whole Cass and Dean, that could have come out bad, but it turned out great because they took a chance on that.
Yeah.
That even with Eileen with the phone, we just watched it this morning. That was a good ending to that episode. You know, it was like, wow, what's gonna happen? And then
They just dropped
dropped everything, and
Yeah.
they took no chances. Like, all right, let's go get the burrito or whatever, and let's do this and let's do that, and then it was crap.
Yeah, the thing with Supernatural, I think, too, is it's always at its best when it's its most bold. Like, the best episodes,
Yeah.
the ones that I most remember are, like, French Mistake, where they go into the real world, or,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you have the musical episode, or Metafiction, even, that we watched yesterday was a really good one, where
Yes,
it's
you
a
break
very
the fourth
crazy,
wall,
yeah,
and then-
like, these
yeah.
weirder premises and stuff, and these more meta moments are always the more memorable, good storylines, but they just really drop the ball at the
They
end.
dropped the ball.
So your favorite character is Jack, right?
No, I think my favorite character is Dean.
Really?
Dean, if I have to
See,
say,
I was gonna say.
I mean, Jack's like
Because last time you said it was Jack.
yeah, but that's
Here's the
more
thing.
like it's like one of those things where I can't pick the 2 or 3 most the obvious ones. Who's my favorite non-obvious character? Jack and Crowley. I like them. I like Gabriel. He's funny.
I really like Charlie.
One thing they do, they have a lot of funny actors
Yes,
in that show.
there's a lot of great
who
side
do
characters.
who do a great job at these really weird times. Even like that's why I like Crowley, because people are getting slashed and killed, and he's still delivering these straight lines, and you're like, this is great. It's fun.
This
Very Quentin Tarantino.
Supernatural does have a lot of really great side characters.
Yeah, you're
and
laughing at
one-offs.
times that you shouldn't be laughing. It's great. I
Yeah,
love that.
it is fun of humor.
But no, if I had to say my favorite character, the best is Dean.
There's a thing in the fandom of a blank coded blank girl. Coded is like who you're most like. So Sam, Dean, or Cass. And then what blank girl is like, are you a Sam girl, a Dean girl, or a Cass
Okay.
girl? I'd say I'd lean more towards Dean coded Cass girl. I'm definitely a Cass girl, obviously. I mean, but I'd say I'm more Dean coded, like I lean more towards being like relating more to him. For you, I would have diagnosed you, my diagnosis, as a Dean coded Cass girl. But now you say you're a Dean girl. So you're a Dean girl. You're a Dean coded Dean girl.
I'm a Dean girl, whatever I mean.
Yes, you're a Dean coded Dean girl. You heard it here, folks.
I also had said that I liked Jack a lot because I watched bits and pieces of the show, but that's the first character, the only character that I
They saw
watched
the whole arc,
his whole
yeah.
arc from the beginning, and I like the character. Like I said before, I like the idea of that character. You know what happens if we now take this? God's gone, the angels are fighting, blah blah, and now suddenly the devil has a son, but the devil's not in control of him. that's a cool concept in my opinion. I just like that concept. That's why I like Jack. And then I really like when he came back as that devil dude.
Oh, he
The
was
demon.
Belphegor as when he's when he's
Belphegor. It was so funny
really
to see
funny.
the actor acting that way.
Yeah, people really like Belphegor. To see.
And he's trying to hit
see
on
Al
Dean.
do it. Yeah, it's pretty great.
I think Dean's the best character in the show.
How do you think what your ideal ending for them would be for Team Free Will? So for Cass, Dean, Sam, and Jack.
I told you what I thought.
I know, but you did not tell YouTube. You have to tell YouTube.
My ending would have been that Sam gets to go with Eileen, and then kind of Dean says, "Go ahead, you have to live your life, and this is why I saved you all these years for this, so you can have your life with the person you love." And then he turns around, and he opens the door, and Cass is standing there, and he closes the door, and the door closes, and that's the end.
Yeah.
You don't know what, you can make up your mind. They're going to just go on more adventures together. They're going to live together. That would have been a really cool.
That would have been really nice. And I think I wouldn't have been mad if it was ambiguous, if it was like that. If it was, because the thing is, the finale, they tried to like make it ambiguous, but it was in a stupid way. You know what I mean? Like it was like they filled in too much that it was like, that's not really ambiguous, but they didn't fill in enough for it to be like, 6 feet under or something,
Yeah, it's a good show and bad ending. But a good overall interesting concept.
So just to wrap up a little bit, that's basically our thoughts on Destiel. I'm very happy that I turned you into a full...
And Supernatural.
And Supernatural, but mostly Destiel. Into a full shipper. I think we both have our new OTP. I made you read a fanfic, everything. We were talking a little about...
I'm a changed man.
Yes, it's transformed your life.
Yeah,
I think Supernatural is very powerful to change people's lives. For the better or for the worse, you decide, I guess.
Well, sorry for the abrupt cutoff there. I kind of screwed up the audio, but thanks so much for watching anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, check out my other videos, and happy 6-month Destiel anniversary. Bye!